What's up, everyone? This is Bane /V here, coming at you with a new video. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit something a bit more old school. When I used to do a lot of events, I try not to do them as much now because I like to have fun and be positive on my channel and all that. But sometimes, you have to speak up about things that you don't agree with. And for me, it's definitely how not fun, basically about how it's not fun to talk about video games and consoles on the internet, and how, in my opinion, a lot of people in the online gaming community is very, very nitpicky, entitled, whatever word you want to use for it. Um, so as per usual, I want comments to be, respectful, because this isn't me attacking anyone. This is just me venting about what I've noticed. And what came to a head with me wanting to do this is the whole debacle about the Switch 2. Now, I'm not going to sit here and get into the thing about whether or not you should get a Switch 2 or not. That's entirely up to you. It's your money, it's your right to do whatever you want. But what I'm getting tired of seeing is the drama surrounding it. People going after others if they got one and talking about how they wasted their money, or about how, or B, you have the people that are defending the Switch 2 that are going after the negative ones and all that. And it's like, you know, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people tell others what to do with their money. People have no right to do that. Um, I mean, if you want to be technically speaking, spending 500 to maybe around $2,000 on a gaming PC, someone else might seem super ridiculous. And some people may think that someone's Steam library is a little too, is a little too over exaggerated, because there are people out there that do have large Steam libraries. And that all adds up. Now, with Steam, I'm perfectly aware that people always get games during the sales, because let's be honest, Steam sales are very tempting. um, because you can get some very good deals, like especially the ones to where like you can get like a franchise um bundle, to where you can get almost every single game from certain franchise, and if you wait for a sale, you can get it like buck cheap. I did that for the Star Wars games on there, and I even did it for the Sonic ones as well. So trust me, I fully understand the power of the Steam sales. Very dangerous. Um, but all that combined, PC gaming can cost more than console gaming. I mean, let's say someone has a total of 300 games on Steam, and they got it with the and most of those games comes from Steam sale. Well, they still add up. They actually go past the $80 of Mario Kart World. And that's another thing people were complaining about. Well, is the prices of the games. And here's the thing. I totally get it, because I will be the first one to admit that I don't think Mario Kart World is worth $80. I'll be the first one to admit that. But that's mainly me watching previews of it. I don't have my hands on it. And here's the thing. What a game is worth to someone is very subjective. And I think a lot of people are going into this with Mario Kart World about how many modes there are. Are they going to end up supporting it like they did with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? And I totally get it. Because especially with how things are nowadays, no one wants to pay $80 for a game. I mean, people tolerated paying $70 for a game. I'll be the first one to admit that I was shocked that they were charging that much. And I know that it's Nintendo, but it's like, sheesh. Meanwhile, you have Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is looking like a much, in my opinion, much more better game than Mario Kart World because there's more to it. Because again, I haven't played Mario Kart World yet. I want to once I get my own Switch. Well, once I get my own Switch too, I was like, to me, it's like, well, Donkey Kong Bonanza should have been the launch game for the Switch 2. Because as far as we know, there's no new Mario game coming out this year until they do their big summer direct, if they even have one. Um, and plus, there was negativity because of the tariffs and I get because I was that really brought down my mood as well about the Switch 2. Um, but they got that figured out, luckily. And and it's not just about the Switch 2. I've also gotten sick and tired of people going after one another over their opinions and over their likes. There are people out there that absolutely love games that are not received well. Like a perfect example for me is I can fully admit I do like Sonic 06. Is it a perfect game? No, it's far from it. But I do generally like what they tried to do. I do see a good game under all the flaws. And like I always said, Project 06 proves that. It proves my point. Now, because everyone has the right to like what they want and to dislike what they want. And just because a game gets like critically acclaimed doesn't mean that everyone's going to like it. Because fun fact, there are people out there that may not like a big open world RPG that's got 10 out of 10, across the board, you know? But there are people out there that might like a game that got 5 out of 10 or or 3 out of 5. And that's because what's a what's a bad game to one person could be a good game to another person. And I feel like because of the internet welcoming opinions, sometimes some of those opinions are very wrong, especially from a moral standpoint. because I would never blast someone for not liking something that I like. I mean, if you come to my channel and you tell me that you don't like Sonic, okay, cool. I mean, thanks for giving me your views anyways. Um and that's another thing too, right? Is the whole console fanboyism that we still have. To where you have a PlayStation fan that will blast Xbox and Nintendo and vice versa. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, one console isn't better than the other. Like, I'll fully admit that I think my respect for Sony during the PlayStation 5 era has really diminished, because I do feel like they got a pretty I do feel like they got a big head after the success of the PS4. Um, and also learning about how they do business, like especially with the whole thing where they would pay developers to not port their games to other systems. That's scummy. That is so scummy. You don't own the company. Technically speaking, those quote unquote exclusives should be timed. Like a perfect example of this is Final Fantasy. Yes, Final Fantasy and PlayStation is super iconic, but so is Final Fantasy and Nintendo as well. So why can't the Switch 2 get a version of Final Fantasy 16? They should be able to. And it's pretty sad that the only version of Final Fantasy 15 that's on the Switch is that pocket downgraded, mobile version. Um, and then for Xbox, God knows that they made plenty of mistakes. I mean, look at the Xbox One situation before it launched. I mean, well, correction, when it was first announced, all it took was Sony to just, and this is about the whole not being able to let people borrow your games and all that, is all PlayStation had to do was make the short clip and be like, this is how you borrow games on PlayStation. And then they just handed the game to the other person. And they instantly won the console war for that generation, at least between those two. Um, and then of course you have, the whole always needing to be online controversy, and talking about how, like, if you don't always want to be online, then there's the Xbox 360, and how the Kinect will basically spy on you and stuff like that. It was just a bad launch, and that whole thing with the whole Kinect thing was mainly a rumor, because people were that angry about the Xbox One, because they did very well during the 360 era. I mean, they had so many classics on the 360 era. I mean, you had Halo 3, Halo Reach, Halo ODST, and then you had the Gears of War franchises. I mean, the Gears of War franchise. God, if I can talk. Then you had, the classic COD games like Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2. Just to name a few. And then meanwhile, you have Nintendo, to where, because of the fact that they always wanted to do things their way, and I totally get it, because they want to. Nintendo likes to experiment. Well, what was happening was that Well, what was happening was that they weren't getting the third parties, and the thing is, there are people out there that just want to play Nintendo consoles. I personally don't get that logic because for me, it's like the big three offers some amazing exclusives. But when it comes to Nintendo, you know, they're probably one of their biggest issues is that they want to be forward thinking and do things their way and do things differently. So, like, perfect example, if you look at the Wii, it's design wise and graphically, well, not design wise, but um, the tech in it was basically a GameCube, which is why the GameCube, I mean, the Wii was backwards compatible with GameCube games. Um, and the whole motion controls, which that started a trend, and which of course, Sony and Xbox tried to copy them and failed. Uh, and then and then you have other controversy, and then of course you have all the other controversies with Nintendo, like how they will cease and desist fan games. When meanwhile you have Sega, praising fan games as long as they don't monetize it. And one of the greatest modern Sonic games, ironically I call it modern, but in 2 years it's going to be freaking 10 years old. Oh my god, Sonic Mania is going to be 10 years old. um but that game was largely developed by Sonic fans that started out in the Sonic fan game ROM hack, you know, fan covers of Sonic songs community. And there are people out there that would defend Nintendo for that choice. And for me, I'm sorry, but I don't see how a fan version of a Mario game could ruin the reputation of your IP, especially if they're mainly doing it to get their skills up. In my opinion, doing something like that is no different than someone learning guitar and mainly learning cover songs because that's how you get your skill up. And then of course there's the whole controversy about how they will break your system if they catch you modding it and all that stuff. Which again, I said this before. You know, it's in their term of service, and technically it's a rule for the Switch 2, but it's not a law. Um, if someone were to go after them for that, which I believe that's what happened with the 3DS, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong. I'm sure Mizu will put the correct information or probably cut this part out if I'm wrong. Um, but if someone goes after Nintendo, I I'm pretty confident the judge is going to look at it, hear both sides' arguments, and be like, and the judge is going to instantly look at Nintendo and be like, I got a question for you. What's renting? And then they would talk about how you are temporarily having access to a product for a certain amount of time, and then the judge would reply with, "Well, how much did you charge people for the Switch 2?" And then they would start explaining the two different the two different Switch 2s you can buy. There's the standard, and then there's the Mario Kart World one. And then that's when the judge would say, "And you pay them full price," which they would say yes. And then the judge would instantly tell them that that is owning a product, that's not renting. Renting, a perfect example of this is back in the day when people would go to Blockbuster or Family Video or Hollywood Video, and they put down 20, 30, 40, $50. I never rented a console from a from a video rental place. I mean, I've rented video games, but I've never rented a console, except for when my when my dad brought home a freaking OG Xbox for like the weekend. That was so cool to play that. But you know, if you're not paying a small fee, and then for a certain amount of time, that's not renting, right? Because that's what they said. You're basically renting the license in order to use the Switch 2. That's not renting. If you're paying full price for something, that's owning. That's like with my guitars. I pay, my parents paid full price for them. And let's say I wanted to change the pickups. Well, so wait, all of a sudden my freaking guitar is going to stop working because I switched out the pickups because of some clause that is just more of a rule than a law? Makes no sense to me. So then, of course, because of that, you have both sides going after each other again. And it's like, we're all gamers. Why are we arguing about things? I know that that's how people do things on the internet nowadays, where you know, everyone wants to be right and blah 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 blah. But like, gaming is meant to be fun. At least with Gamer Rage, that can be fun. Especially when you overcome that rage and you defeat a very hard boss in something, then you get that amazing feeling that you can only get after intense rage. That I understand. I mean, it doesn't mean that people should be breaking their controllers or consoles or games, because that's freaking ridiculous and that's immature as hell. But we're all gamers. It doesn't matter what console we play in. It doesn't matter what we do with each other's money. As long as we're all having fun, that should be the point. But yet, everyone wants to argue. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I understand being vocal about something that you disagree with. And that's totally fine, but going after someone just because they want the Switch 2, just because you're boycotting it doesn't mean that everyone else should. And perfect example is, for the people that ended up getting a Switch 2, well, just because you got one doesn't mean that the people boycotting it, that are actually legitimately boycotting it, and not deciding to kind of, buy a Switch 2 under the quote unquote table, and be like, yeah, lower the price of the Switch 2, woohoo. Anyways, I'm gonna go play Mario Kart now. As another thing too about fandoms and communities I don't like is when you have that whole thing to where it's like people seem serious, and then they're there, and then they're like, oh yeah, screw this thing, da, 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 da. I'm gonna go purchase this thing or go see this thing or whatever. I don't like double standards. And a lot of people do double standards on the internet. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'll be the first one to admit this. I mean, I complain about all three companies quite a bit about what they should be doing correctly and all that. But at the end of the day, I don't know business, and they do. So obviously, they have probably some charts that tells them what they need to do or whatever. I don't know. I don't work for them. And that's another thing too, is when people saw the pre-order price for the digital deluxe version of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, after dissing, I'm gonna use the words playfully dissing um Nintendo, and it costs even more than the uh and it costs even more than the $80 Mario Kart game. Yeah, I get it. But there's that FOMO of not wanting to miss out on the possible characters. But the thing with Sega too, you guys, is that they normally do like a digital deluxe upgrade. So, and they always put it out on the day of release. So, if you guys just want to get the standard version and then get the digital deluxe upgrade later on, you can totally do that. I plan on doing that. I plan on pre-ordering my copy from Limited Run Games because I really want that statue. Um, there's options, and I think that's the thing too that us gamers don't seem to realize is that we have options. You know, we can wait for a sale. We can do payment plans on something, especially for a new console. And I think people tend to forget that a little bit. But overall, you guys just enjoy gaming, have fun. You know, if you want to shoot the shit with someone, do it nicely. Don't mock someone just because they're Kingdom Hearts fans or whatever, or if they plan on buying a console that you're quote unquote boycotting. And just in case people are wondering why I said what I said about PC gamers, is because, well, in my opinion, I don't know how to say this nicely. If there are PC gamers that are complaining about the Switch 2 price, in my opinion, they have no room to talk because they chose to build a PC for a certain amount of fun, or be like, especially if they go through like a PC builder like Origin, like I did. Um, because fun fact, if you want to upgrade any of those components, well, you're going to have to uh pay a pretty penny for the upgrade. So even then, with a PC, you're always putting money into it. But on the flip side, and I can see PC gamers putting this out in the comments, that unlike the Switch 2, the PlayStation, or the Xbox, you can keep a PC going when you make those upgrades. So in a lot of ways, PC gaming is evergreen, but at the same time though too, there's that flip side to where it's like I make a lot of good points too. Because again, like some people may view having a $2,000 gaming PC to be freaking too much money, or even a $1,000 PC, or be even 500. Because at the end of the day, gaming is a luxury. It is not a need. It is not close to where we need clothes, but we don't need gaming. And before anyone throws out about how they need gaming because of because of what they're going through, I do I do agree that gaming is a good escape. I should know. I lost my mother back on Halloween in 2023. So trust me, there are days I need to escape with a good with with a video game or a movie and all that. But there's also other ways to do that for free as well. Like simply even going outside. But this isn't a video to be talking about what to do with mental health and all that. I'm just making the point here is that video games are not clothes. You don't need them because they are a luxury. Just like my guitars. I don't need my guitars. You know, once I start making money with them, yeah, I'll definitely need guitars, but right now I don't because it's a right now it's a hobby of mine and it hasn't become my profession. And that's ultimately my biggest goal of 2025 is to start my music career, which I'm slowly doing with recording an album and all that. But overall, like I said, just enjoy gaming, respect each other's opinions, even if you disagree. And let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm sure that this video is going to have some interesting responses. Like I said, keep it civil, or I will not respond, and I will most likely will um end up deleting the comment if it's a full-on attack. So yeah, you guys make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and hit the bell button. I'll see you all in the next video. Happy gaming!